Right, testing. This is going to be a very long video, okay? Welcome to video 3 of our chapter 8 to 9, okay? Now, this time, we're going to talk about a special version of the law of demand, okay? What I call the relative version of law of demand, or the name is called Elgin's generalization, okay? 好嘛，艾治人一般法 okay? So what this is about, we first go back to the absolute version of law of demand, right? In the law of demand, it says that higher the price, lower the QD, and then CP, right? Now then this guy, Elchian, okay, he was trying to do something funny with the idea of higher the price, lower the QD by adding another pair of P and QD, okay? So he says basically, what if we do this? Price of A divided by price of B. This is what we call relative price. Now, don't worry, we will look at that in our next example. Okay, if the ratio of this PA over PB has increased, then the ratio of QDA versus QDB would also decrease. Okay, what he was thinking。嗱，原來當年佢想做啲咩咧？當年佢係想試下 prove 個 law of demand 啊，OK？That's why he came up with this kind of proof，OK？佢話啊，如果我試下將佢加啲手腳，睇下 work 唔 work 先。Turns out this one also works perfectly fine，OK？嗱，let's forget about this sentence first，OK？Let's forget about this sentence first, and let's see what this is about. Okay, enter two terms. One is called nominal price, another one is relative price. Okay, 咩東西嚟嘅咧? Now let's consider there are two different models of smartphone. Okay, we have Xiaomi and Apple. Okay, now obviously Apple is the more expensive one nominally. 好啦，咩叫 nominal 咧? Nominal in Chinese 名義. So basically this one is money price. Okay, we are talking about in terms of money. Okay, let's assume, okay, it is 10,000 and 2,000. Okay, now let's look at what is our relative price. Okay, 乜嘢叫做 relative price 啊? Okay, now relative price here, it means that price measured in terms of good. 我哋用第二隻貨品嚟到去量度我有幾貴啦。Okay, now for this example, let's say Apple 10,000, okay, 1,000蚊啦。So one apple, the price of one apple, you use the same money, okay, you can buy 5 小米機. So the relative price of one apple is actually 5 小米. Versus here, 1 小米, the price is only enough to buy 0.2 apple here. 好嘛？嗱，所以呢個就係 relative price 啊，得唔得先？ Now let's move on to exactly what this box is about. Okay, now this box says when a lump sum price increase, it would result in an increase in ratio of quantity demanded between the higher price to lower price to increase. OK， 好啦，咩東西嚟嘅咧？我哋試下將佢翻譯翻做我哋明嘅嘢啦，好嘛？ Now here to cope with the problem of teenage addiction to smartphone, okay, which is very serious, okay， 大家都知道上堂都做緊呢樣嘢嘅，係咪？你哋啦嚇，我老婆間好乖嘅，你哋就會啦，好嘛？ Now the government has decided to levy a 2,000 tax on all smartphone. 好啦，重點 all smartphone, and it is always 2,000. Now what we call this? We call this a lump sum. 咩叫 lump sum 啊？話知你幾多錢 話知你幾多嚿，總之係2000就2000啦。Okay, so let's calculate what would be the new nominal price. Now, obviously for 小米, it's simply 2000 plus 2000 equals to 4000. Okay, 4000萬。While for Apple, 10,000 plus 2,000 equals to 12,000. Okay, 12000啦。Okay, so nominal price just add in the same 2,000。你見啦，兩個都係加2000嘅，呢個咪冧心咯，係咪？呢個咪我哋嘅冧心咯，冧心咯。Sorry 啊。Now, what happens to the relative price？嗱，呢個就重要啦。不如咁，我哋首先呢度停一停先。Let's call this column 1。好啦 ，so in comparison, we see that in column 1, both nominal price have increased， 兩個都係貴咗㗎。So the conclusion, we are definitely sure by the law of demand, the absolute version。因為兩個貴咗嘛。So what happens is that the QD for both would decrease， 兩個都肯定買少咗㗎。OK， 兩個都肯定買少咗啦。But then the difficult one is actually the second column。OK， the second column。好啦，呢度講緊啲咩啊 ？Apple。OK， now 12,000 4,000。So one apple with the price you can buy 3 小米。And one 小米 is around 0.33 apple. Now, I want you to look at this one and this one. 有冇見到啊？由5去3。So in terms of 小米 okay? In terms of 小米 Apple actually becomes cheaper in terms of 小米。見唔見啊？平咗啊！ So here, the second one. 好啦 now we know that the relative price of Apple has dropped. So the quantity demanded of Apple versus the quantity demanded of 小米, this one would increase the ratio. 我哋個名啊叫做 ratio 或者sorry 啊，或者 proportion。 OK 好嘛 ratio 或者 proportion has increased。 OK 嗱，即係咩意思咧？ Let's put it into some numbers. For example, originally, let's say under original price, Apple I buy 10, then 小米 I buy 100, right? 係咪？哦90好嘛 90簡單啲啦。 You will see in this example, Apple takes up 10% of market share. Under the new price, 新嘅價啦，會發生咩事咧？ Obviously, first of all, Apple is going to drop in quantity demanded， 梗係啦。Let's say drop to 9， 貴咗嘛，買少部咯。But then for 小米 ，OK, it should drop by a whole lot。 咩叫 whole lot 啊？ Such that, let's say for example, this would become an how much？ 睇下先啊，是但啦，好嘛？ This would become 50, for example. Okay, for example. So here you will see immediately this would be larger than 10% of market share. 見唔見啊？其實而家 Apple 啊 ，OK, Apple's share of the market would become higher. Okay, why? Because of this relative version of the law of demand. Relative price decreases, relative quantity demanded increases. OK， 記住啊，呢招係冧心 ，only works in 冧心。OK， so exactly what this box says. OK， 好嘛？ Now let me give you two example. Let me give you two example. OK， 哎呀，諗緊沓紙先，我沓紙去邊處啊？咦，哎呀，死啦！我唔見到沓紙添，等我一陣啊。Okay, give me a little bit of time until find my yes, they're here. All right, now let's try this. Now, you see, in example, I've given you two applications, right? The first application's about taxi, okay? 好啦，我哋唔好理咩短加長減啦 okay? Now, let's use this example. 我哋諗下啦，嗱 taxi some time ago in my age, okay? 阿 Sir 以前嘅年代咧就咁嘅 ，without any jumping of the meter, okay? 唔跳標嘅話咧。It was $15，OK， 好正嘅以前。以前咧上車啊，短途咧唔跳標咧係15蚊嘅。OK，好啦，假設啦，a long trip，let's say all the way up to let's say what about 90，原來啦長途的90蚊。OK，好嘛，15蚊同90蚊。Now let's first try to look at the relative price. We see that one long trip, in this case, okay, in this case, we see that it is worth 6 short trips. 原來搭一程長途的已經等於6程短途的啦。Okay, not exactly the cheapest. Okay, now let's say nowadays, okay, 而家的士幾多錢啊？我之前搭我記得好似28啊。Let's say now 起標全部加15蚊 ，for example，OK，for example，嗱咩叫起標加15蚊咧 ？OK，起標加15蚊 ，it means that both short trips and long trips you will have to pay $15 more dollars，OK，係咪啊？So this one you can see this is a lump sum increase, which would lead to the new price 新嘅 nominal price 啊 for a short trip without any jumping， 其實應該唔係 jump the meter 啊，我唔知啦，唔知英文啦，英文渣啊 ，OK， 好嘛 ，without any change in the meter，OK，it would be 30，OK，while this one would become 105。OK, if I'm correct, OK， 嗱唔知啱唔啱啊？揾人攞個小算盤幫我計計啊。OK， 好嘛？Now immediately you will see that under the new price arrangement, one long trip would be roughly, okay, actually not roughly, I think it's exactly 3.5 short trips. Okay, now let's compare two things. Number one, we see that both short trips and long trips, the nominal price increased. So by the law of demand, we know that both long trips and short trips, the quantity demanded will decrease. OK， 一定短同長途都會搭少咗，即係咩意思啊 ？Total distance travel， OK， total distance traveled by taxi would decrease。梗係啦，長又跌，短又跌，係嘛 ？But then if we look at this one with the lump sum increase, do you see that the relative price of long trip has decreased? Now, therefore, people, the relative QD of long trip versus the quantity demanded of short trips, this relative would increase. 原來相對之下 ，OK， 相對之下 ，people would tend to take more long trip than short trips，OK， 好嘛？嗱，記住啊 ，absolutely speaking must have decreased. Only that the relative ratio proportion，OK， 係 proportion 高咗，即係咩意思啊？原來個 average distance per trip 每個 trip 嘅 distance 嘅平均啊 distance，OK， will increase，OK，that would be by Elchian's generalization，OK， 得唔得？所以啦，呢個就係的士嘅 application 啦，好嘛？嗱，if you do not follow, feel free to pause the video or rewind the video，OK， 好嘛？嗱，assuming you understand, let's go on to the next application. on concert tickets，right？ 嗱，好得意啊！你發覺咧 concert 咧會發生一件事啊。Usually what happens is that okay, for those 山頂位 those with the cheapest tickets，OK 係咪啊？最平嗰啲啊，例如啱啱啦，美斯啦，係咪啊？啱啱美斯嚟踢波係咪啊？佢話啦，最平嗰啲咧，usually OK the furthest seats would be the farthest not furthest farthest OK seats would be bought mostly by the local people。香港人咧就全部買晒山頂位嘅，OK。And then as you look at the 握手位，the closest seats，OK， 4880嗰啲咧，係咪啊 ？The closest one，OK，obviously we still have Hong Kong people there，but then if you look at them，a lot of them actually comes from overseas，特登嚟外國想支持下美斯，點知美斯係一秒都冇踢過嘅，OK？嗱 ，how come local people buy more 山頂位 and the foreigners would buy the more expensive tickets？OK？Something to do with the law of demand again，OK？好嘛？好啦，嗱，例如啦，我哋就攞美斯睇下啦，係咪？So what happens？係咪幾好笑啊？睇新聞咧，話咧有啲人咧，話咩喺年宵啊，標兩個價，一個叫美斯價4880，跟住查咗去，跟住我哋嘅價係唔知40蚊咁樣，幾好笑喎真係。Anyway, here now about concert ticket, right? Now the concert, let's say the here, okay? Let's call this 美斯位 ，OK？ 美斯位 is 4880，OK？好嘛，4880。While for the peak，OK， 山頂位幾多錢啊？哎呀，頭先開始 zoom 之前唔記得揾添，OK，let's assume，OK， 我 assume 啊，let's assume 山頂位 is yes 480啦，當住先啦，好嘛？480。
80點會買到啊？
係應該唔得嘅，是但啦，係容易啲明啊嘛，係咪啊 ？OK，my wife just complained this must be a false number. I know, right? Just that I forgot to do my research. OK，anyway，OK，好嘛。So here you see, this is what the local Hong Kong people would have to pay。我哋望望啦，OK，我哋望望啦。誒，不如咁樣簡單啲啊，4800啊，容易啲計數啊，好嘛？OK，now with this example, we will see that. One, I still don't know how to pronounce that. So if I pronounce it wrong, okay, boys, please do not make IG group for me, okay? 唔好整個 Leo Chen 美斯關注組啊，即係搞唔掂啊。Let's say one Messi, okay? 一個美斯 okay, would be 10 peak 係咪？一張美斯飛夠你買10張山頂位啦 ，okay? This is what the local people face, okay? Now versus for a foreigner。嗱，obviously 嗱冇歧視嘅，佢哋買咧都係4800同埋480嘅。OK，嗱，but this is not the full price, boys. Why? Because the foreigners, if they need to come to Hong Kong, OK, obviously they also need to pay for transportation。OK， 好啦，咁你會唔會搭飛機？佢問下你，你買美斯位定買山頂位啊 ？No, right? Whatever you buy Messi ticket or peak ticket, your air price, your air ticket will be the same。假設啦嚇，原來而家旺季新年 ，OK，then 係嘛？飛機係15000。嗱，你記住喎 ，no matter which ticket you buy, you are still paying this price。OK， 係唔係都俾15,000㗎啦 ？So the full price will be this one and this one。OK， for the foreigners, immediately you will see for the foreigners, one Messi is basically the same as one peak， 其實差唔多嘅啫。對啲外國人嚟講咧 ，relative price speaking，OK，relatively speaking，the tickets are almost the same. Now, therefore, you see, for foreigners, their relative price is lower than the local people. Now, therefore, foreigners would tend to buy relatively more. Percentage-wise, they would increase. OK，明唔明啊？That is how you explain the situation，係咪？等於啦，你去到你山長水遠，你話同女朋友係咪？Your girlfriend，let's say you guys go to Greece，OK，去希臘旅行，咁你唔會山長水遠去希臘，跟住食麥當勞啩？係咪啊，大佬？冇錢啊，我俾20蚊，你唔會山長水遠去食個麥當勞啊嘛？Okay, of course you would tend to eat the more expensive local food. Okay, that is how you explained. Okay, using Elchian's generalization. Okay, so these two are the applications of Elchian's generalization. Okay, now I think this video is definitely running too long, so I lied. Okay, I'm going to break it into a third video. Okay, the third one we're going to look at some past paper examples of how to work out Elchian's generalization. Okay, so I will see you very soon in video 4, right? Is it 3 or 4? 4, right? Very soon.